We continue with the postponement of the budget. We're now joined by the National Assembly Speaker, Thoko Didiza. Good afternoon, Mr. Didiza. Thank you very much for joining us on the program. I suppose what we can all agree on is that what we saw today is a practice foreign to Parliament. Never have we witnessed a postponement of a budget speech. You indicated to members of Parliament today that it was essentially the lack of consensus that brought us to this moment.
Precisely. We were informed by the leader of government business, who is the Deputy President, at about 1350 this afternoon, to say Cabinet is not ready to actually table the budget because of certain disagreements among members of Cabinet in respect of the budget.
So this was
and
10 minutes to 2.
Given the timeline that they had, they were not going to be able to resolve that issue today for us to be able to have the budget presented to us.
So just for clarity, Mr. Didiza, it was at 10 minutes to 2 that you were roped in as Parliament, and this was communicated to you that possibly there could be a postponement of the budget speech. And then at what point did you inform the Whippery, and what was at least the conversation there?
As you know, Parliament was supposed to start at 14 hours. So between 1350 and just after 2 p.m., we had to have a quick consultation with the Whippery to make sure that such a discussion and a decision is communicated to them, and we all consult as to the way forward.
And what were the outcomes thereof? Because we understand, at least from what we saw in Parliament in those proceedings, that at least the UDM was not part of the conversation.
Well, the UDM says they were not part of the consultation, and I'm sure you heard the Deputy Chief Whip of the governing party, who is the one who convened the meeting on behalf of the Speaker, indicated that she consulted everybody who was at the House that time, which therefore means the UDM might not have been there at the time when a request for consultation was made. And it was a matter of agency, and therefore those who were there were actually consulted.
And all were in agreement that indeed there must be a postponement.
There were two parties who had a different view. One of them was the EFF, who said they don't agree with the postponement. The second one was the MK party, even though they were not emphatic about non-postponement. They just clearly said they are aware that part of the issues in the environment that is causing such a stalemate is the proposed increase of 2% in the taxes, and they reject it. Which I advise Honorable Manye to say, but we're not discussing the budget that has not been tabled to us, but we note your view on that one. Clearly, a majority of members were taken by surprise to say we've never had such a situation before, but we do understand, because when the budget is tabled in Parliament, it is a government budget that gets tabled to Parliament and to the nation. So it's not a budget of a minister. And when Cabinet is not agreed and they make a request, as the Speaker, it was very clear to me that there won't be any possibility for a presentation of a budget, and therefore we needed to accept to a postponement. And one of the things members raised, the Whippery, was we need a definite time to say, if we postpone today, when is the budget going to be tabled? And that information we got during the proceeding, that the executive would be ready by March 12th to present the budget.
Speaker, there are many concerns around wasteful expenditure here. There were other events also planned by corporates. Certainly, one would think that indeed, in such a co-governing structure, there would be issues, there would be debates. Every single political party, there are 10 within the government of national unity, they would want some of their suggestions to find expression in that budget speech. But if it's something that is brought to the attention of Parliament at 10 to 2, when the budget speech must be delivered at 2, most certainly this should raise concerns concerns? Because even with journalists, we're just looking at our phones now. We've been reminded by National Treasury that whatever was stated or whatever journalists were informed of in that lockup obviously cannot be shared. The speech was typed, it was embargoed. So in that instance, couldn't the disagreements have happened maybe a week ago? Is Parliament okay with now what becomes the result of all of this, which is the wasteful expenditure?
Well, Bomukazi, you would appreciate very well that Parliament did what it had to do in that regard to consult amongst parties given the unprecedented situation that we had found ourselves. But you, as well as myself, would know that already by midday today, there was an indication that there's an urgent cabinet that was called to reflect on critical matters, and I guess it was in respect to the budget. So when we were informed, while it took us by, surprise, but it was clear that it was no small matter that would have, made cabinet to approach Parliament to actually postpone the presentation of a budget today.
So you're saying that those who are saying that this amounts to wasteful expenditure and perhaps Parliament should hold the executive accountable on this one, that it shouldn't have been at the 11th hour, you're saying it's reasonable. There was an emergency, they couldn't find each other, so most certainly this becomes the result of that.
Well, as you yourself said, this was an unforeseen matter. Yes, Parliament, as its responsibility, must hold the executive to account. But at the same time, Parliament in this regard was consulted, albeit the last minute. Actually, Parliament was informed that we find ourselves in such a situation.
All right.
So we had to do what is necessary as Parliament to consult among parties. The Speaker did not just decide and stand on the platform and say we're postponing. We had to take all parties into consideration and table the matter so that all of us in our minds can really reflect on the situation and take the best decision that there is at that particular moment.
All right, Ms. Dididza, thank you very much for your time this afternoon. That is National Assembly Speaker Thoko Dididza. They're sharing with us just the process that they followed leading up to this moment where they announced that there would be a postponement of that budget speech.